So we enjoyed that, didn't we? Yeah. It was so good. Look, I don't get these lollipops out for just anyone, you know. So good to have you guys with us. Amazing. And Stephen, Series 5.
Yeah.
You came in with a bang on that one, didn't you? It was absolutely fantastic.
And it gets better and better. I mean, Series 5 I think is the best so far, and there's lots of shocks, lots of surprises, lots of great stuff to come. Brilliant performances, all beautiful.
And Helen, I think I saw something on the one show. You said you saw the script for this new series called Killian, and you were like, best one yet. In what sense?
Yeah, because I think that, story is always king, but if you then you rely on somebody to come up with that story. It's all very well to say that. I mean, on theory, everybody knows how to make the best, the best of television, but doing it is another thing. And I just think that Steve eats up the plot in this season, and the fact that, without getting anything away, that there are some sort of shocks means that always the first person you're putting, the person who's in first place is the audience, because you're constantly giving them and trying hard, because it's hard. It's hard to be in season 5 and still be getting better and better. But he did it, which is good.
Which is fantastic. Talk about season 5. I always wonder what it's like. Obviously you guys finished the previous series, you all go off and do your separate things, and then you sort of come back together. What's that first day like back on set?
Well, it's great because you obviously, because a lot of the cast are young, so last time you saw them they're like, yeah, I was really, really sad. He was the guy that was weeping quite a lot at the at the wrap party, and the next time you see them, like, I'm married, I've got kids, I've got 5 houses, I'm so happy. So each time you see everybody, it's just like being in a normal family reunion. It's just like a Christmas at any family. Which is, there are people standing in the Christmas, she's still there. She's still at the buffet. And other people, you're delighted at, and you make sure I'm sitting next to that cousin and not that one. So it's like any other dysfunctional family.
Sophie, is your first day back like that as well?
Yeah. My first day back actually was that slow-mo shot of us all coming out of the family meeting, walking down the street with all the fire, and I'd been on another job and I'd come onto this, and I was sort of a bit giddy. I think everyone was a bit giddy because we were all stuck in this little alleyway waiting to come out and do the cool Peaky walk.
Peaky walk? Is that what it's called?
There's an official slow-mo Peaky walk, which I feel like we all saw then. But they were great. They played music for us the first couple of times because it takes a while to get into it. But yeah, and it is, and you are sort of like reminded.
Do you naturally do it in slow motion as well?
I did say so. Yeah, I was like, please slow this down and make me look cool, and put a filter on it and some music. Yeah.
And Sam, welcome.
Thank you.
To the series, and quite an interesting character, quite a divisive character, some might say. I'm quite interested from an actor's point of view. Obviously, many people know you from Hunger Games and also Pirates of the Caribbean and so many other things. Is it quite daunting taking on something like this? Something that's already had a nice flow, already pre-existing team. I know you're a professional.
I was going to say, I've done that literally over and over.
But does it get easier?
It depends. It depends on the project. It depends on the people. I think I was incredibly blessed with this particular project and these particular peoples, in that they made me feel extremely welcome and welcomed me with open arms. So I think, and especially playing the character that I have the opportunity to play, I kind of felt like I was an outsider in many respects. I was someone who wasn't used to their ways and their walks. And that was something that Anthony, the director, kind of played on initially. I think one of my first scenes that I did was a scene with a few of the Shelbys, and there was immediate banter between all of them. I mean, they go way back. I've literally seen each other grow up. But Anthony was like, Sam, stay back, stay out of it. I don't want you to be their friend. Initially, just because this is the first time you're meeting that family, and so it felt very real and it felt very organic. But like everyone was very, and I'm a big fan of the show. I have been since series 1. So this is a dream come true for me.
And let's talk about your character, Oswald Mosley. We've seen previous other characters come in and get something a little different out of Tommy. what does he give to Tommy? What does he get out of Tommy that we see in this series?
Well, I mean, many things. I think that the amazing thing about this particular series is this isn't. I mean, Tommy's sort of out of his comfort zone. You know, he's playing a big boys game now. You know, he's playing chess, if you will. And Oswald Mosley is someone who grew up playing chess. So it's the big fish in a small pond, kind of going into the ocean all of a sudden. And you know, Oswald Mosley is still very young and inexperienced in many respects, but at the same time a lot more experienced than Tommy. So I think the two of them enjoy the challenge of trying to outwit one another and, you know, using each other to better themselves and to kind of get ahead. You know, and obviously when those two characters come together, it's you know, it will hopefully excite people as much as it did me. I think it's a great journey that I myself go on, but I think for Tommy, this series, like especially, is very, very different, and it's a very, very different approach. It's much more Tommy's sort of battle with Tommy. You know, Tommy's his own worst enemy.
Sure. Let's stick on the characters, and Helen, Aunt Polly, we've seen her go through so much. I remember the previous series, there's a line sort of, I killed a man, I've lost a man, I've found a son, I've nearly lost a son, I've nearly lost my own life. I mean, she's been through the lot. What else can she go through in this series?
Oh yeah, don't stop my plot line. She can go through a lot, actually. And I think Mr. Knight will agree. A lot. And on screen.
It's a meaty character.
You're not going to be my age. Yeah, it's. I think that's what's interesting about. I mean, you know, as you say, with the relationships with men, that he has given that to Tommy and to Polly and to Ada, and actually the women and the men in Peaky Blinders do try and find love. They're not, you know, for all Tommy, everybody likes being solitary, but very few people like being alone, and that's true for this family. And they are all searching for love. You know, and he plays with this whole idea in this, you know, can a bad person become good? If a bad person does a good act, does that make the good act bad? You know, these people, even gun-wielding eye slitters need a bit of love.
What was it when you picked, you know, the first script up, you saw that character as an actor? What was it in her that resonated with you? What was it that you were like, wow, she's a pretty meaty character?
It's always down to script. She's got brilliant lines.
Yeah.
And she continues to have them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they all do. I had the privilege of sitting, I won't give it away, but I had the privilege of sitting this season in a tent in a field, it really is vague, in a field somewhere in the north of England at some time, but it was dark at night, and hearing a fantastical Oswald Mosley, because obviously it isn't Oswald Mosley, because you can't have Oswald Mosley on the screen, it has to be a pretend. So in a way I imagine it must have been very hard for you because you're playing somebody who mustn't exist, and listen to Sam speak as a character. And that's when you realise how brilliant the writing is, as well as when you get to see other people perform it. And our fantastical Oswald Mosley, thank God, knocks it out of the park, unlike the real one that didn't get the vote. So, you know, yeah, it's the writing. It's always the script.
As we're talking off the writing, well done. I was sort of sitting next to you over there, and you sort of, it was really nice actually, you were just laughing at moments where I felt like the actors really hit those lines the way you wanted them to come out. Is it quite wonderful as a writer when that happens?
Absolutely. I mean, it's great. It's different watching it with other people as well, because you get a feeling of, you know, what's transporting people, you know. And it's great when people realise you can laugh as well, you know, because it's meant to have this humour to it as well as all of the terrible bad stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's an absolute miracle that we've got this fantastic cast who just come back time after time and just deliver this thing and just make it, you know, more than the sum of its parts. That, you know, Helen and Paul and Gillian and Sam. and Sophie and all of them. You know, you can go all the way through. It's not like there's weakness there. And what it means is when you're writing the next series, as I am now, you're confident that you can do this stuff and they will deliver it and they will be right there and it will be fantastic. So for me, this is just an absolute dream.
And Sophie, similar to Aunt Polly, we've seen that character evolve in the various series. What do you think attracts viewers and an audience to her? Why do they stick with it?
It's just so cool. I was just sat watching it like, this is just so cool. Like, how often do you see this kind of like punk energy on screen? Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, I think what is so beautiful about this, it has mythologised British history in a way that we're quite shy about doing. And I feel like the Americans do it very well. You know, they take their history and they just make it fucking rock and roll. And I feel like this show does that, and it's funny and it's cool and it's not ashamed to be a bit heightened, you know, and it is this sort of, I really like using that word at the moment about Peaky's. It is punk, it is a bit anarchic, and it just keeps going, and it just keeps gaining momentum each time, and I feel like people have just keep coming to it, like more and more and more, and it keeps attracting all this amazing talent, and I think that's what draws people in. It's quite unlike anything else we have on TV at the moment.
And Karen, for you, taking this out of the comfort zone of the BBC, you know, I've got family out there, when they hear the Brummie accent, they don't know what the hell's going on. Were you a bit worried it would, you know, translate in the same way?
Not at all, because I think Americans are more able to understand the hero's journey over time. So they're more character-driven than plot-driven. And while the amazing work that people here in Britain do, the writers especially, the thing that they're not used to doing here is to follow the hero's journey, or in our case, the anti-hero's journey over time. So he's more in line with, you know, the Walter Whites and the Don Drapers and the Tony Sopranos. So they're used to our idiom in America, so, and they don't hear a Brummie accent. They just think, oh, all of them sound weird. They don't even understand when the Queen speaks. It just sounds odd. Most Americans don't even have passports, so it's not like it doesn't matter if it's Brummie or not. I'm from Chicago. Do you know that I have a Chicago accent? Maybe some of you would, but in general, it's not about that. It's they understand the hero's journey, and they understand what you're talking about is the two things: the mythologizing and the punk energy. In order to bring you to where you are now, you think there were punks, you know, in 1919? Yeah. And are there punks now? Yeah. So, you know, 100 years later, and we're still people. We still have families. We still have love interests. We still want love and all that. So it translates not only in America but all over the world.
And obviously now on BBC One, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, much more mainstream audience.
Yeah.
Any compromises you had to make in that respect?
Not at all. They were great, and they continue to be. They were great. They're still great. They're going to be great. It's just been a fantastic partnership, and that's so happy making. You feel so good about it because you're only as strong as we're sellers here. We sell our work to you. You buy tickets, and we sell our work, and we are only as strong as our weakest buyer. BBC's our buyer, and they're strong. So that makes us happy.
Now, Stephen, I think it's always quite tricky when something like this comes out because there's always like talk on gang violence, knife crime, all those kind of things. But also it gives you a liberty to really explore what happened back then in as honest a way as possible. Do you think that with things like Netflix, Amazon Prime or whatever, other different platforms, the idea of the mainstream now has changed? And it's back to sort of that idea of did you have to pay anything back? Actually now, it's just like, let's go for it. The ball.
I mean, television has changed totally in the past 10 or 15 years. I mean, partly as well as the issues it can deal with and the language and the way people behave. What's underestimated is people now are watching TV on big screens. You know, they imagine when people used to watch on little bulbous little things in the corner, there would have been no point. So the production values have gone up, and with that, I think there is a grown-upness about television now that perhaps wasn't there before. And you know, you do know you're doing stuff for adults who can tell the difference between right and wrong, hopefully, and make judgments about violence. And in Peaky, always, if there is an act of violence, there's a consequence. Always, always, always. So if somebody gets injured, they're injured for a long time. They stay injured. It's not like, I think more pernicious is, you know, you watch over the shoulders of your kids as they're playing a computer game and people just battering hell out of each other and there's no consequence. You know, there's nothing happens as a consequence of that. It's just normal behaviour. Whereas I think in something like this, you know, not only does someone who's hurt stay hurt, but also in the next series or 4 episodes along, there will be a consequence to what happened in that moment of violence. So, you know, it's about gangsters, so obviously it's going to be there, but I think it's dealt with in a way that would be a deterrent rather than, you know, making it attractive.
I'm quite interested in sort of your process and what you see on screen, because I think we've mentioned it already, how some really good dramas echo what's currently happening in the societal zeitgeist, and how far in advance are you thinking about what's coming, or is it just what you see at that time is what you put down, or is it influenced now?
Well, it's been fortunate for us and unfortunate for the world. The things that were happening, and it's happened previously in other series as well, but the things that were happening in the time that we're setting the series have an unbelievable resonance to what's going on now, because in the 30s it was the rise of nationalism, populism, fascism, racism, you know, huge sweep across the world of that. And you look at the world now, and what I hope people might take from this is what was the consequence of when it happened last time. 9 years later there was a world war, you know, so maybe it's not such a great idea, you know, because that's what happened before, and there was this real movement of like, we must protect ourselves, the foreigners are the enemy, it's everybody else's fault, and it was hugely popular. People loved it. People absolutely loved it. You know, Mosley was getting 100,000 people at his rallies, and there was 100,000 people trying to get in. Loved it. But what happened, and that's. But it's not because I planned or knew the way things were going. It's just fortuitous, in terms of it so happens that as we've done these leaps of years between 1919, that we're hitting on this time, and something was happening that is so resonant. And I think people will find it staggering, or they'll think I've made it up, that the language, the phrases, the sentences that we use at the time are not just similar, they're the same language completely, which is quite chilling.
Let's sort of look at the idea of like really good dramas, and primarily it's the characters. I think another channel was floating some of their latest dramas, I think it was ITV, and with the slogan "Great characters make great drama." But I thought there was a really beautiful scene in it, actually. Brenda Blethyn, who plays DCI Vera Stanthorpe in Vera, walking through, and then she just turns to the camera and says, I couldn't give a damn what you think of me, maybe that's why you like me so much. And I always look at Peaky Blinders and I think, actually that's quite fascinating, because that entire family don't give a damn. Like, they really don't. Was that at the back of your mind when you were writing this? Do you know what, perhaps this is showing us a little something within us?
Well, I was very keen not to do a traditional British period drama where, especially when it comes to depictions of working class people, that, you know, the impulse is to say it's a shame, it's a pity, you know, isn't it awful, wasn't it awful, wasn't everything terrible for them? These are a family that are completely in control of their own destiny, you know, and also coming from that background myself, I wasn't surrounded by people walking around saying, poor me, isn't it terrible? They were having a laugh, you know, and enjoying life and making the most of it, glamorising it and being big about it. And that's what I wanted the Peaky Blinders to be. And
for you as actors, over time I'm sure you've met some rather interesting fans. Anything that, you know, I mean, you've got that to come. But, you know, I think I read somewhere that you were in Italy and people were like, oh, let's go have a drink or something like that. Or like,
yeah, there's a Peaky Blinders bar in Rome that I was invited to, but I didn't go, but I was like, this is insane. And it's like all over the world. Like, it really does. There is, weirdly, even though it's some very, very specific corner of Birmingham in you know, 1920s, it is universal somehow. I don't know why people. And I was in a pub the other day, and there was a huge stag do of Peaky Blinders. You had no idea I was there. I love it. Snuck out. But yeah, people love it, and I love that like ferocity of enthusiasm about it. I think that's part of the show's appeal. You know, it invites you to really embrace it and enjoy it.
Now, something I was really interested in, being a Brummie personally, is the lack of stuff that's made in Birmingham. And I noticed this very quickly, that this was clearly a show set in Birmingham. I think I looked in the list of how many dramas. I'm quite geeky this way. I looked at how many dramas were set in Brum. I think it was something like 16. In terms of having it as a setting, London over 100, Manchester over 80. What do you think that is?
There's a lack of production there. I mean, there's sort of a hole in the middle of the country where there's not a lot getting. It's getting better now, but not a lot getting made. I think other cities have given themselves a narrative. They've given themselves a story, and Birmingham perhaps hasn't done that. But I'm now noticing that it actually is changing quite rapidly, and I am setting up a studio production hub in Birmingham, so that stuff can get made there. It doesn't necessarily have to be set in Birmingham, but it will mean there will be a skill base there, and we will start something very creative, not just film but also theatre and ballet and dance and all of that stuff. We want to be creative near the centre of the city, but again, the bigger message isn't just about Birmingham. I think that in Britain, in America, you can write a song about a city. You can name a song after Phoenix or Chicago or something. You can't, for some reason, do that with Grimsby. See what I mean? It's like, what is it? But I think what would be great, because Britain has got brilliant writers and producers and directors and stuff, is for people, especially the generation coming through, to be able to look at their own backyard and mythologise it without any qualm, without any embarrassment. Because what's embarrassing about it? It's the emotions and feelings of people in Grimsby and Huddersfield the same as they are in Chicago and Phoenix. So what's the difference?
I guess this is quite an open question. I'm going to open that to you guys. Actually, I think we've got some roving mics in a sec. Is that with many dramas, books or films that really capture the public's attention, I feel underwriting it is something that they're learning about themselves. What do you think the Peaky Blinders are trying to tell us about us?
I'll take that. I think without Steve's understanding of the human condition, forgetting where they live, as you said, they're in Phoenix, they're in Chicago, they're in Huddersfield, it doesn't matter. The understanding of the human condition is really we are always doing it every time we're looking, every time we're doing anything, every time we're on the tube, every time we're walking, every time anything happens, we're thinking, I wonder about that guy. How does that guy live? What about her? Does she get along with her dog? I mean, there's so many narratives that are going in your head constantly. You don't acknowledge them. Actors do, because that's their job. Actors are constantly, believe me, how do I feel? 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 Because that's their job. But we do that too. So whatever aspect of connection you might have, you might not have Aunt Polly, but you have someone in your life who serves like Aunt Polly in your life. You may not have that child, you may not have that wife, you may not have that brother, but someone is kind of like them. So whatever narratives you can snatch from even random people that you see on the tube, you're going to do that because that's who we are. That is what we do all day long. So the connection is what he's doing. And so if you see our Twitter account, it's as likely to come from Uruguay or Russia as it is from it's the wildest thing. Everyone around the world gets it because they have families, they have loved ones, they have dogs. Not that I'm saying the actors are dogs, but in the most important way, that's how we connect. That is what we humans do always. That is why these actors are so, and we think of old Blue Eyes wherever he is in upstate New York now. That's why they're so. That's why they're so important to our society. I feel actors are giantly underrated. I mean it really, as people who can communicate our narratives. And yes, we could say, well, aren't they pretty in this one? And didn't he play a bad guy in that one? But that's not what actors do. And so we have to understand, and also our other interpreters, our réalisation, our director, and people, all the craftspeople who come into it are making you feel something. You don't know you're being manipulated, but we're conscious of how to make our best connections, and that's our job.
Fantastic. Right, let's open this up to you guys. I think we've got some roving mics. Any questions? That guy caught mine first.
I really enjoyed that. Can you tell me how many, if you know this, how many cigarettes you get through in the course of cigarettes and cigarillos you must
Let me show you my lungs.
Seriously though, do you keep account of them? Because they seem to be
Killian,
virtually every scene.
Yeah, Killian apparently, and I can't remember which season. Do you remember series
They gave a number, didn't they?
Was the props guys reckoned about 1,000. But no actors were killed in the making of Peaky. You don't inhale.
Let's go over there. I thought there was a gentleman's.
Hiya. We're all looking forward to series 5 and 6 and 7. Is Polly, Arthur, Ada and Tommy all going to make it to the end?
Yeah.
Oh, my agent is in. Thank you, handsome, kind sir. Steve?
Yes. Yes.
It's not going to tell you, is it?
Good evening, everyone. My question is for Sam. You've played a wide variety of fictional characters and not so many real-life ones. How does it compare, and is it more difficult portraying a real-life person?
Good question. It varies. I mean, for me, Mosley was a fictional character. I didn't know anything about him before stepping into his shoes. So I kind of was fortunate in I was sort of approaching it from a non-judgmental angle. I didn't have any feelings or thoughts towards him. I do now. Now I do. He's definitely very eye-opening for me. I suppose I researched him the way that I would anybody that is living or non-existent. I kind of learnt about what he did and what his viewpoints were. I mean, I started with a script, honestly, and Steve did a great way of letting his thoughts be known in a great way. So yeah, it definitely opened my eyes to a world that I wasn't familiar with, and I think that for me as an actor is the dream. I think to step into the shoes of someone that challenges me, not only as an actor but as a human, to kind of open my eyes and open my mind, I suppose, and my heart to a different type of person. I mean, the one thing I was always taught at drama school is you have to love your character before anything else. It was very, very difficult, this one. But what I mean is I had to kind of understand who he was and why he was making certain decisions and why he was he thought the way he thought. And I think that's always terrifying and challenging, but I enjoy that. So equally enjoyable playing fictional and non-fictional. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Hi, I've got a question for Stephen about the music. For me, the music's incredibly important to the whole thing. It's very evocative, especially when the peaky walk and perhaps the punk. I'm just wondering, how important it is to you, and how much of that is your own personal record collection?
No, it's not. It's not down to me. The music's not down to me. I think we have a collective sense of what, and very occasionally I will say we should use this piece of music at this moment. But mostly we've got a fantastic team who put this stuff together, and this season we've got Anna Calvi, who's curating the music, which is brilliant. And it seems that we've somehow fallen upon, and Killian said it, he said, you hear a piece of music and it's either peaky or it's not. And somehow you sort of know. But no, I mean, there's the team that put the music together are it wouldn't be difficult, but are way more knowledgeable about music than I.
That's a gentleman.
Alright, hi guys, I'm from Germany. The question is to Helen. Helen, what did you think, what should Polly do when maybe kill her son? Would she fight or would she give up?
Sorry, I didn't understand that. What would Polly do with what, her son?
When Michael would be killed from anyone.
What would she do if she got killed?
Would she
I
kill
see.
the person, or would she give up then when he's dead?
Don't try it. Is all I can advise. I think that she probably would. I think she's quite Old Testament, is old Paul. I don't think she's really listened to many of the sermons of the Mount, and I think she's an eye and an eye. Yeah.
Hi guys. It was a great opener. Really enjoyed that. Stephen, I'm actually from Grimsby, so you're welcome to come and make the Peaky Fisherman.
I think you ever are.
No.
I'd love to feel like that.
I think the great thing that I personally love about acting is that I will never be the best. So you're always chasing that dream. I'm fortunate enough to be working, and there's a lot of us chasing the dream, a lot of us. But everyone has a different dream, and I think the great thing is even when you know, say for example, it was to play Oswald Mosley in Peaky Blinders, which, you know, for me was a dream of sorts, but I didn't know that it was a dream until it kind of, fell into my lap in a wonderful way. I think the great thing is once a dream is achieved, then you immediately, like anyone, once you've achieved a dream, you want another dream, and you're always chasing the dream. And I think that's what excites me. I don't think I've ever walked out of an audition and said, I nailed that. I know I speak on behalf of most actors when I say that's generally how most people feel. I think truthfully, I trust my director, I trust my producers and my fellow castmates. You know, I suppose I seek reassurance from them that they're happy. Are you sure you've got what you want? You know, are you sure we can't go again? But yeah, I'm a perfectionist, and I think that's why I love this industry, because there's no such thing as perfect.
Are you an
Apart from
actress?
Helen.
Lower your standards.